Hello, this is Dr. Oz. In this video, I would like to talk about an important Excel function called Sumproduct. So imagine a company which is sending products from these origin nodes, Cleveland, Bedford, and York, to these destination nodes, Boston, Chicago, St. Louis, and Lexington. And the cost of sending, let's say, one product, one unit from Bedford to Chicago cost me $5. Another example, from York to Lexington, it will cost me $5 per unit of product. In these facilities in Cleveland, Bedford, and York, I have limited supplies, 5,000 units in Cleveland, 6,000 units in Bedford, and 2,500 units in York. And in these locations, 4 locations, I have 6,000 unit demand in Boston, 4,000 units of demand in Chicago, etc. So when you add these up, and I highlight and look at here, some of 13,500. When I look at these supplies and I see 13,500, what I mean by that here is that I can find a feasible solution for this problem because I have supply quantity of 13,500, which is greater than or equal to the demand of 13,500. In this video, I would like to build this model in this part right here based on these given parameters. All right, first question I always ask myself before I build a model, what is the objective of this model? And since I have only cost information here, and cost is something that is unwanted for a company, I would like to minimize the unwanted things. So minimize the total cost or minimize the transportation cost. So I will make that calculation, the cost calculation, right here. And I like to use green cell for my objective function. All right, next question I always ask myself is, what am I trying to decide in this problem? In other words, what are my decision variables? Here I have 3 origins and 4 destinations. So in other words, I have 3 by 4, 12 units of 12 decision variables. Let me just copy this area right here. Control C, Control V. And these are going to be empty cells because I want Excel solver to calculate these values for me. That's why I press delete and make them yellow. I like yellow to represent my decision variables. And I would like to decide how many units to send from each origin node to each destination node. It's not going to be shipping cost, of course. This is going to be flow in terms of number of units. How many units should I send from each origin node to each destination node? All right, the third question I like to ask myself is, what are my constraints? So subject to, I have 3 constraints associated with my supply constraints. And I have 4 constraints for my demand side. Right click, paste special, transpose OK. All right, I want these to be left aligned. All right, so I have overall 7 constraints. 3 of them are supply constraints and 4 of them are my demand constraints. Every constraint should have a left-hand side value versus a right-hand side value. So in general, right-hand side values are given, left-hand side values are calculated. So the right-hand side values for Cleveland is 5,000. And I can drag it down for Bedford and York. And right-hand side value for Boston is 6,000, Chicago 4,000, St. Louis 2,000, and Lexington 1,500. I like to reference all my cells here to back to my parameters. So if I change anything here, my calculations should be updated. So supplies, I can maximum send 5,000 units. So since the maximum of 5,000 is less than or equal to constraints for my supply side. For my demand side, at least I need to send that many units. So greater than or equal to. So you may argue that here I don't want to send more. If that's the case, you can always make equal to. If I want to satisfy my constraints exactly. So either way is fine. So left-hand side values I need to calculate. So how many units do I ship from Cleveland? So to do that, I need to do row sum of these values. I can drag this one down. These are number of units. I can drag this one down to next 2 cells as well. And now I need to look at how many units are going to Boston. So again, I need to sum, but this time not a row sum, it's a column sum. And these are units as well. Format painter, I want to use the same format here. And this time, if I drag it down, I need to make those adjustments because I want Chicago sum here. And I want St. Louis sum here. And finally, I want Lexington sum over here. So I drag it to Lexington. All right, so I set up my constraints. I like to use reddish color for my constraints. All right, so now I can write my objective, which is the sum product of these coefficients, comma, these variables. All right, so instead of doing 1 by 1, 3 times this cell, plus 2 times this cell, plus 7 times this cell, plus 6 times this cell, plus 6 times Bedford to Boston cell, that will take so much time, especially for bigger data sets. Sumproduct will do that calculation for me. Let me show you an example. If I send 1 unit from Cleveland to Boston, it will, these are number of units, these are not dollars, let's make them numbers. As you see here, it would cost me $3 because it cost me $3 to send 1 product. If I send 2 products, 2 times 3, $6. Let's say if I send 2 products from Bedford to Chicago, it would cost me another 5 times 2, 10, so it should be 16. So as you see, this number is calculated based on decision variables. All right, so I don't need to know these numbers. Excel solver will calculate this. So I click on my green cell, data, solver. If you don't have solver, you need to click on File, Options, Add-ins, Analysis Toolpack, click Go. Make sure that your solver add-in is checked. Once you do that, click OK. It may take a minute or two. Then you will see under Data tab, Solver add-in. Click Solver. My objective function is the green cell. Click on that. This is a minimization problem. I'm trying to minimize the cost. Click on min. And I need to choose my yellow cells, which are these values right here. And I need to add my constraints. Click Add. I can add the first 3 constraints in one set because they have the same relationships. I want these left-hand side values to be less than or equal to right-hand side values. Click Add. And I want these 4 left-hand side values to be equal to my right-hand side values, which are these values. Click OK. So as you see here, I have 2 sets of constraints. Overall, 3 plus 4, 7 constraints. I want to make sure this box is checked because I cannot send negative number of units. We are using linear programming. That's why simplex algorithm is going to be used. Click Solve. And if you do this correctly, you will see that you find optimal solution. And optimal solution for this problem is to send 1,000 units from Cleveland to Boston, 4,000 units from Cleveland to Chicago, etc. So these are the shipments. As you see, if I highlight them, I send overall 13,500 units, which will cost me $39,500. That's the lowest cost you can achieve. And as you see, all my constraints are satisfied. So this is the optimal solution. That's it for this video. Until next video, enjoy business analytics.